Skill-based matchmaking is just plain better. In response to discourse condemning skills-based matchmaking, Activision has released a 25-page white paper revealing a secret experiment where they massively reduced the impact of skill in matchmaking for half of Modern Warfare 3 players in North America. According to their results, around 90% of players had lower overall playtime and were more likely to quit during matches, with only the most skilled of players being unaffected by the change. Now, hold on, because I want to back up and say, other than reading the words together in the order they're in, I don't actually know exactly what skills-based matchmaking means in this context.
Yeah, I got you.
And why anybody would be upset about it.
Sure.
Hit me.
So, completely non-skills-based matchmaking. It's not really matchmaking, but like completely non would just be like pub servers back in the day. You have a dedicated server list, you jump into whatever server's there, you're playing with those players. A matchmaking version of that would just be filling random lobbies with people automatically, but based on
FIFO.
Nothing. Yeah, exactly. First in, first out.
Sure.
Skills-based matchmaking would be that you would have some type of like MMR, a matchmaking ranking.
Sure.
And in this case, it would probably be hidden. So you don't necessarily know what your matchmaking ranking is, but it's going to match you up with people that are similar to your ranking as best as it can.
Okay, so then follow-up question. Who the actual donkey fuck thinks that skills-based matchmaking is a bad idea?
I think like
is this not complete? Is this controversial? Is this a hot take?
I don't know if it's a hot take for the actual average person necessarily, but there is definitely a loud amount of people that don't like skills-based matchmaking. I know that.
For what reason exactly?
I don't know necessarily. I can think of I think it would be maybe hard unless the matchmaking rank that you have is public, which I know some people don't like that because then they feel like they're constantly playing ranked, which you technically are.
Yeah.
You just don't know that. But unless it's public, to me, a negative feeling that could come from it is that you feel like you're constantly on this treadmill of skill, where you never really feel like you're getting that much better compared to other people because the game is constantly pairing you with people that are of the same goodness, I guess. Right.
So by their logic, anyone should be allowed to be in the Olympic freestyle swimming finals? And if one person happens to be really good, then and one person can barely swim, that's are you entertained by this? Sorry, what?
I do think every Olympics should have an army of Jim Bobs that are just average dudes, and they just show them alongside the Olympians to show the gap. I would actually I know this is not an original idea. People have been saying this for years. I would love it if it happened. Because you see these people perform and you're like, that's cool. Yeah. But maybe this is some sport I've never seen before. Or I never really understood the gap. You see someone dive and they have 3 droplets come out of the water and you're like, is that good? And then you see some random dude just flop. It's a huge wave. And you're like, oh, okay. So there's actually there's difficulty here. I think that would be fantastic. But anyways, I don't really get the argument. I prefer skills-based matchmaking.
And the thing is, I honestly speaking, to me, this is so, and I'm so sorry if I sound like such an asshole sometimes because sometimes things just seem really obvious to me. And then I say, isn't this obvious? And then people are like, wow, Linus is mean. That wasn't obvious.
There are things about skill-based matchmaking that makes things less interesting to me personally, for sure.
But okay, well, hold on. Let me back up for a second, because maybe part of it is just my lived experiences that make this obvious to me. There's a local badminton tournament. It's called Badmintology, and they usually do about 2 to 4 tournaments a year, and that's what I signed up for when I did my very first badminton competition. And they had, they're gamers, they're memers, it's a young group that runs it. And so the way that they divided their brackets was blue shell, red shell, and green shell. And the description was blue shell is for competitive players at a very high level. If you've ever competed provincially or nationally, so basically...
This is Mario Kart.
You should be in here. Yeah, exactly. Red shell was if you play regularly and compete hard, and green shell was for if you are just getting into the sport and you're looking for a friendly competition. I signed up for green shell because that was a description of me. I was playing every week, but I'd only really been doing it for 6 months to a year or something like that. I showed up for my first match, got absolutely fucking shit wrecked by someone who was sandbagging in a lower tier. And I guess for me, what I realized from that experience was that that's not fun. I didn't have fun. Did they have fun? Like honestly, okay, here's a good example. Would Magnus Carlsen have fun, like, destroying my son at chess?
Have you seen some of his, like, he puts a blindfold on and then plays 5 people at the same time?
That's totally different.
So sick. No, I know.
Because I'm talking about in what is supposed to be
I think it would be really boring
a level match.
I'm sure it would be.
And if he did get some kind of perverse pleasure out of that,
I doubt it.
Would we think that that's cool or admirable?
No.
Would it be fun for, if he, and I'm not talking about him taking the time to give a tutorial on, what he was doing and why. And I'm talking in competition, because we're talking about this in a competitive gaming context, right? Where people are competing to win. How could anyone look at that and go, yes, that is good and honorable and enjoyable? And I have always said, and a lot of this was inspired by my experience in that first tournament, where someone who had absolutely no right to be in green shell, but it was self-assessed, right? So they just decided that they were going to be green shell because they want a medal, essentially, right? Is that medal valuable? I mean, we mock participation trophies, but you're basically self-opting into a participation trophy for yourself by, like, competing in the kids' league. Like, what's wrong with you?
I think you have some long-term resentment over this this particular occasion.
Well, it's not the resentment. It's a desire to fix it.
No,
like,
I know, I'm just bugging.
Like, I will tell people all the time, I would rather lose a match 25-23 than win.
You want good games.
21-4.
Yeah, so someone tried to bring up Fast Philly said some people do love that stuff. Remember Tarkov, and I don't necessarily think that's true for Tarkov. I understand what you're trying to get at, but like, when I used to play, if you could tell, like, you can see in Tarkov the level of the person that you took down, and if they were a low-level player, I wouldn't necessarily automatically do this. But I would, if they were a low-level player, I would look at the kit that they brought in and be like, is this a low-level player who's played a lot, but just they didn't go super hard this season?
Yeah.
Or is this actually a new player? And if it was a new player, I'd throw all their stuff in a bush so they get it back in insurance. Because, like, I'm not, like, super proud of that W,
Yeah.
But I think sometimes, like, some things that I do like about not skill-based matchmaking is, like, if I think about playing TF2 mostly, most of these are going to come from TF2.
Sure.
But I think about playing TF2 back in the day, especially with really big lobby games. If it's like a 5 versus 5, I can't think of many scenarios where I liked non-skill-based matchmaking. But big lobby games, you'd find, like, the one good person on the other team. And even if you weren't doing that well, trying to, like, hunt that person down had a very deep level of satisfaction to it. Like, maybe I'm not doing that great in the game, but if I can impact this game by taking down their star player every once in a while through like certain weird type of gameplay, then that's, like, really fun to me. I think there's emergent types of gameplay. I think there's emergent interactions that happen from mixing pot instead of skill-based matchmaking. And I think there's a little bit of forever treadmill that comes from skill-based matchmaking that I think might be like, part of this story is that 90% of players had a lower overall playtime when it wasn't skill-based matchmaking.
Yeah.
And I don't know personally that all of that is just because they enjoyed the game more. I would say that as much as I do think skill-based matchmaking is in general better, I suspect some of that increased playtime is because of the forever treadmill of I'm always slightly behind.
Sure.
You never had a game where you were number one. You never, like, these things didn't really happen because the game is designed to not really allow that to happen.
Sure.
So, I don't know. I understand why some people might think it's negative.
Yeah.
Personally, I think overall it is more positive.
I do see a lot of people talking about how, like, what if I just want to relax and play a game for fun without trying too hard. And it's like, right, but the issue is that you're playing a competitive game. So the other team, they don't have the luxury of deciding, oh, I'm down, I'll just try and win. And so it's not about you. It's about everybody having an opportunity to win. And that to me, I mean, that's the foundational core of competition. If one side decides who's going to win, would you tune into a sporting event? I think that's why the TF2 examples stand out to me, is because as much as I am definitely tryharding, because I just sort of do that all the time and everything, but in TF2 it is much more of like an arcade game. Yeah, with a huge lobby, because I'm used to like 16 versus 16 arcade style gameplay, and then that's where you're going to get a lot more of those emergent cases where you can like headhunt the top players and all this other type of stuff. But in TF2, just through the sheer law of numbers, unless people are being complete, and jackasses,
and it's going to average out a lot better.
The chances of it averaging out, it's also a more chaotic game. Yeah. There is absolutely skill in Team Fortress 2. Totally. But there's also absolutely stepping on a bomb just because, it just was flung across the map. It happens, right? And so I think that TF2 is an example of a game where, as long as people are not maliciously, intentionally stacking the teams, then it's not nearly as much of an issue. But honestly, I'm so glad you brought that up, because we all know that team stacking is a dick thing to do. And essentially, when you argue against skills-based matchmaking, you're saying, well, I should be allowed to be on a stacked team.
Yeah, I don't feel like it happened that much in TF2 though. I think across the board, I don't love it. But in certain games, like in COD, it probably does make sense. Yeah. I don't think there's a very good argument against skill-based matchmaking in COD. But I do think there's other games where it's genuinely fun.
There's no way that I would play Halo Infinite without skills-based matchmaking. It would be a complete waste of time. A top-level player is on such a different level that they would just wipe the other team, grab the flag, drop it, wipe them when they respawn, and carry it back. It's not... Are they having fun? And if they are, what's wrong with them? I'm sorry. I definitely see how there are formats where skills-based matchmaking might not make that much sense. I mean, even coming back to Halo Infinite, the one semi-competitive game I guess I play that actually has what MMR I guess is what's the player ranking.
It depends sort of on how it's being handled, but if you say MMR, most people know what you mean. Yeah,
so it's probably the one game I play these days that actually has a persistent MMR that chases you across all the different formats. But if you're playing big team battle, I could see them playing a little faster and looser with it. Yeah. Because things are just sort of generally more chaotic. But if you're playing like a 4v4 format, one person being out of whack completely destroys the gameplay experience for everyone, including themselves, whether they realize it or not.
I just thought of another argument that might come up for the anti-skill-based matchmaking crowd is that some games do lock you out from being able to play with your friends if there's too much of a gap. I know that used to be a thing.
And that's a bummer, but the answer to that is just allowing user servers, right? The answer to that is not to not have an MMR and not have skills-based matchmaking.
In my opinion, that combination of dedicated user servers and skill-based matchmaking is the absolute prime.
That's the way to go.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you shouldn't be allowed to play with your friends, or you shouldn't be allowed to. I mean, Luke and Joe and I would lobby up with my son when he's getting kind of sweaty, actually.
I was going to say, he's probably better now. Every time I play with him, he's a little better.
I know. But we would lobby up with him, and we would know that we're going to have to carry him, and that, the matchmaking is going to be a little bit weird because I'm going to go probably, I'm all over the place. I'll be anywhere. I'll be anywhere from sub 1-1 to 4-1, depending on how things are going for me. Anyway,
genuinely pretty confusing.
Doesn't matter. The point is that Luke and Joe are both really good. I'm this X factor, and then my son's was gonna go 1 in 15 or whatever. So we knew that was gonna happen. And I would never argue that you shouldn't be allowed to play the game you want to play it, but there's a time and a place, and you have to understand why these systems are in place, and that it's not about you. It's about creating an environment where everybody has a fair chance to win. And bad skills-based ranking, yeah, that sucks.
Yeah.
Like if you've got skills-based matchmaking and you're being dumped time and time again into matches where you are getting absolutely just destroyed. I mean, it could be one of two problems. It could be that their skills-based ranking system is not very good, or it could be three problems. It could be that the servers are really light and that they just don't have a lot of options for matching things up.
That happens.
But problem number 3 is that you could have run into 3 assholes who are playing on Smurf accounts and are ruining the system for everyone.
Yeah.
So, to me, the problem so often is not the game, but the gamers.
Yeah, yeah.
I think if everyone in good faith engages in a skills-based matchmaking system, I think it can work really well. I think you especially run into trouble if people are not. I don't know, man. I feel like I'm going to end up like lit up on r/COD or something like that over this, but I've had worse.
Maybe there's parts of the argument that we don't know. I don't know, but it seems pretty straightforward to me. I don't know. Something I like, so if there isn't dedicated servers and you're still just using matchmaking on both sides, something I like is when there's ranked and the rank is very much in your face. And when there isn't ranked and it's still skill-based matchmaking, I prefer it if you can find it, if it's possible.
Yep.
Sure, don't show the up and down after every game. Don't make it a center feature thing. But if I can like go into my profile and find it somewhere, that's kind of cool. Because like for me, I would like to know if I'm getting better, if that makes sense. Yeah,
and I mean, for me, I did find it frustrating that when I signed up for playing ranked. Because when I was in that mood, I was playing ranked. But when I signed up for quick play or whatever else, it turned out I was playing ranked as well. Like I think a lot of this could be solved by these companies just having a separate game mode that is skills-based ranking or not skills-based ranking. I mean, providing player choice is never a bad option. But what I suspect that people would discover is these high-skilled players that want to go dunk on noobs in the not skills-based ranking mode are going to discover that none of those people want to be in there with them.
Like, I used to sweat super hard in League of Legends, and something that I would do is in the non-ranked mode. Is that a thing? Pretty sure that's a thing. Am I tripping? No. Yeah, there's ranked and not ranked. Okay, it's been a long time. I haven't cared about League in like a decade. But when I used to sweat in League, I would only play very specific characters in ranked, and I would try really hard.
Yeah.
And then in not ranked, maybe sometimes I'd play those characters, but I wouldn't really be trying as hard, or I'd be experimenting with new item builds or something. Usually I'd be doing something that wasn't exactly the same as what I'd be doing in ranked. Trying a new item build, trying a new opener, trying new laning partners, trying a new lane even, maybe even going as far as trying entirely new characters. Like I don't want to be evaluated at the same level as I was in ranked. So I do appreciate that as well. Who's your main? I used to call her Ashy, and then I heard people that run the game say her name, and now it's Ash, apparently.
Oh.
And that's fine.
Oh man, Luke. That's a silent E.
I liked Ashy more. I prefer that name.
Ashy?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.